This video will show you how to complete the audit checklist, create nonconformities, and complete the risk assessment using the AniMark Conformance System in the web version of the Auditor portal. I'm logged into the Auditor portal on screen. I'm in the Audit Order page, and as you can see, I'm in the Audits New and Accepted filter. I'm going to show you how to complete the audit checklist using the web version on this demonstration audit. To edit the audit order, simply select the audit that you want to complete and hit the Edit Audit Order button. It will open up the audit workflow with the Start page. You can navigate by clicking on the navigation points along the top to move along the workflow. The Start page contains information around the details of the audit. You can input the date and the times of the audit here, and the end time when you're finished. You're able to add auditee participants by clicking the plus sign button. So this would be anyone that you're at the audit with. So the site contact or the authorised representative, for example. When you're done, hit finish, and they added as a participant. If you have someone from your company or a co-auditor, you can add them here as well. Down the bottom, we have a number of comment boxes. The auditor's recommendation is an important one, and you should come back to that once you finish the audit before you issue the audit report to add in your recommendations about the certification. You can add in any comments or additional information here as well. The certification body will see these fields, but the auditee won't. So when you're done with that, you can save and move along to the next step, which is preparation. So along the left-hand side, you can have a look at what livestock that they are being certified for. If they have any nonconformities open in the system, you can check their scope of certification by clicking on classifications, or access their files such as their application documents, previous audit reports, or any evidence around corrective actions, nonconformities from previous audits as well. Under the services, you should be able to see what audit checklist will contain. So this audit is just a demonstration, so it only has a short one, but we have the risk assessment as well as LGAP 1003 for chain of custody, just because it's a short one. So before you start an audit, it's always important to update the checklist if you've accepted that audit a really long time ago in case there's been changes. Make sure you don't put anything into the actual checklist and then hit the update checklist button, otherwise you'll lose all the information that you've input into the checklist. You'll also need to update the checklist before you download it onto the mobile app so you have the most current version. So moving on to the actual checklist in the web version, you can only do this if you have access to the internet. So if you don't have access to the internet, make sure that you've got the mobile app and you've downloaded the audit onto your device first. So there's a number of functionalities with the checklist, but it's pretty simple. So on the left-hand side, we have boxes which look at the checklist into chapters. So you can see we can expand and collapse using the plus and the tick signs to help you navigate better. So as you can see, there's the two checklists, and then this is the questions in the checklist. So there's only 4 in this checklist, which is making it easy for the demonstration. So the buttons we have here is autosave. I recommend that you leave this on so that you don't lose any information, and it will just save in the background for you. You can increase the font size and decrease the font size depending on how you want to view the screen. You can refresh the page, and you can also print the audit report from this page as well, but I wouldn't recommend doing that until you finish the audit, otherwise you'll be issuing an audit report that's incomplete to the operator or facility that you've just done the audit of. Along here as well, you'll see the icons change as you complete the audit checklist as well. So the little paper icon indicates that there hasn't been an answer added. The green one means yes, you've answered yes, and if it's a red cross, it will say you've answered the question, but it's a no to that answer. So what I'll do now is show you the functionality of the actual checklist. So as you can see here, we have a question which relates to an LGAP requirement. And then we have a number of buttons on the right hand side. This one isn't really relevant, so wouldn't ever use that one. This one resets the question, so if you've input some information and you don't want to keep it, you can hit that button and it'll clear that question. Basically, it just refreshes it and resets it. You can add files directly to this checkpoint. So in the audit checklist, it will actually upload a file for you to say if you collected evidence as part of that question, you can upload it directly to that question. You can also click this little box here, that is the memo box, and that gives you guidance from the Auditor Guidance Manual, which gives you the requirement number in the standard, as well as examples of conformance you could look for at the audit, and if there's any specific auditor instructions around that. So for example, if you have to do a traceability exercise, or if you should be monitoring animals, as an example. You're also able to answer yes or no simply by clicking onto it. So if we're going to answer yes because this requirement has been met, you've done the audit of this question and you realize, yep, they do conform. So you click yes, and then you're able to add in a comment just by typing into the box. And if you wanted to upload a file, we can click on the little paper clip, and that opens up a file upload page. You're then able to add the file by clicking this button here, and then you can either drag it from your desktop or your file explorer, or you can click into that folder and upload a file. You can give it a name if you like, but you don't have to. And then save and close, and that'll upload into the checklist, and you can just hit the close button to go back to the checklist there. So down here you can see that there's now a green dot next to this one. So this means that there's been a previous audit, there's been a non-conformity issued for this requirement, and it's been closed out. And then you can see down here we've got a red one, which means that there's an open non-conformity still open in the system for this requirement. So that shouldn't normally happen, but if you do see that, that's something to pay special attention to, because there is a non-conformity in the system around that requirement. So if you did find a requirement that wasn't in conformity with the certification requirement that you're looking at, if you hit no, it actually generates the non-conformity, or creates the non-conformity in the system for you. Now it's important that you click this little button to activate the fields, and then you can input the details of the non-conformity just by typing in, like so. If you know what the level of the non-conformity is, whether it's a minor, major or critical at this point in time, you can definitely pop it in. You just hit the finding level and you have your options. So say it's a major, if you do that, it will pre-populate the deadline by due date with 7 days. You can add in additional information if you like by clicking on the description box. Again, not mandatory, but the operator or facility will definitely see the information that's in this top box. So that's where you need to put the details of the non-conformity. You can also hit the open details button here, and what that does is open up the non-conformity entry where you can edit a little bit more. This box is, you can collapse these down just by clicking these little arrows. It just gives you some information about the audit. The checklist item, which is just a copy of the checklist question that we were answering. The finding detail is basically, that's where the information of the non-conformity is and the level. Here you can upload a file as well. So if you click on there, you get the file upload button, just like we had before in the checklist. And you can upload non-conformity evidence directly to that non-conformity. Also down below there is the deadline details. So we'll just give you the due date so you can make sure that that's correct, but you don't have to do this right now. You can just create them, pop in some details and come back to this at the end to make sure that you're all happy with the wording. So I'm just going to hit save and close to go back to the checklist. And you can add comments in here into this box as well. Highly recommend. Again, you've got the memo box here and you can reset and it will actually clear it, but I don't want to do that. So we're just going to cancel. So on the left hand side now we can see that we've answered all the questions because they've got the little paper icons disappeared. So we've got 1 non-conformity and 3 answered correct. So you can hit save and validate, but it will tell us the risk assessment's not finished yet because we haven't done that. So when you hit save and validate, if you haven't answered a checklist question, it will appear with the red bar at the top to let you know that there's questions that you haven't provided an answer to yet. You can click directly onto them from here and it will take you straight to that question. Otherwise, you can navigate to the right one. You can also turn that view off if you don't want to see the bars. So to do the risk assessment, you can click on the risk assessment folder, and what that will do is show you all of the risk assessment questions. So you can just scroll down the page. So I pre-filled this one just in the instance of time to show you how to finish it all off. But the risk assessment works in the same way that the audit checklist does. You're provided with a question and a number of options. Now, these numbered options correlate to controls, which we have in the memo box. So you need to click on the memo box in the first instance to have a look at the options and what they correlate to. So if we do an example for this question, so how frequently are reports on livestock in the supply chain received by the operator? So we're thinking about how frequently reports are received about traceability by the operator. So if we click into the memo box, we can see that we have a number of options. So let's just say, for example, at the audit, you figured out that they receive them every week or so. So we can kind of go 5 to 7 days every week. Okay, so we need to select the number 3. So close out of that. We can select the number 3. You can add in a comment here as well and say, reports are received in weekly. So that's sort of how it happens. And what this will do is calculate a risk rating at the end. So just to show you that again, we can do another example. So how frequently are traceability reports on livestock reconciled by the operator? So we've got a number of options. We're going to click the memo button. And then we can pick the time frame. So you would have picked up on this information at the audit when you did the traceability exercise. So it's important to make sure that you've done that part of the audit first before you do the risk assessment. So let's just say it's received weekly again. So this time we're selecting 2. So you have to be mindful of which option you need to select. It's not always going to be the same option. So we're going to stick number 2, and then in here again weekly, just to show that everything's matching up, so we can correlate it easily. I filled out the rest of them here just as an example, but if we hit save and validate again, you'll see that the validation then is finished and you get a green bar. The next step along the workflow is then the findings or the nonconformities. So if we click along to there, we'll see all the nonconformities that we've generated in the audit checklist. So this one here is the workflow status finding created, and you can click into it here, add more details, you can change the level, you can add in more details, add in more files, and update the due dates if you've changed the level as well. So we'll save and close this just so it's in the system, we know it's there. And then what's next is you can move along to files. So if there's other files that you want to upload to the audit that didn't relate directly to a checkpoint question, or you didn't want to go and try and find that checkpoint question, you can do it directly here. So you can use the add files button on this part of the workflow as well. The next part is the validation. So that just makes sure everything's finished. You can skip over this if you've done it previously on the checklist page. And the final page is the end page. The end page is where you need to do a few little things. So firstly, you can put in a result of the audit. The risk rating will calculate automatically, so you don't have to change that. And then in this box, you can click into it and provide a result for that audit checklist. So for this one here, it gives you the options for audit completed with nonconformities or audit completed with no nonconformities. So we know that we did find a nonconformity, so I'm going to click audit completed nonconformities. And that just saves the result for the reviewer to be able to have a look at. So that's all you need to do in that space. But the next thing you need to do is save. And then we have to go back to the start page. And that's important because we need to update the date or the time that we finished the audit. Just say it was a really long audit. And then come down here and then you can pop in your recommendations. So if it was a new one, you could say grant certification. I think this one was an exporter. And let's just make up some information. So if we save that, that'll save that in there. And then we can hit back to the end page. And then we can print the report. So I just hit the little printer button and I now want to save that. So if you hit the save button, that will save a copy of it to the auditee's profile for them to access and see. The certification body can also issue an audit report once all the nonconformities are closed, so they have a copy without the nonconformity details as well. So you click on it, it will open up a PDF version of it, so you can see all the details are provided here as well. So it's important that you add in your recommendation there so it pulls through to the report. The report will actually pull through your comment. So if you put in a comment about that, it will put it in here, as well as whether you've answered yes or no. The risk assessment doesn't pull through because the operator and facility doesn't need to see that, but the details of the nonconformity do pull through to the audit report, so it's important to make sure you issue it as well. So we can close this file now, and the next step is to finish the audit. So what you can do here, you can see the finish section. It automatically defaults to finish audit, and all you have to do is hit the apply button, and that will push that audit to that certification body so that they can complete the review and certification decision. The next step after the audit is finished, you'll see you can go to the findings tab, which is where the nonconformities are. So here you can hit findings, and we'll open up all the nonconformities in the system relevant to you. So what we want to do is use the filters on the left hand side to then go my created findings, because this is where our finding will be for our exporter that we just created in the system. In here we can click on it to open up that entry, and like I said, you can change the level, you can add more information, you can add more files and update the deadline if you've updated the level. So if you change the level here, it won't automatically update the due on date, but it will update the deadline. To issue it to the operator facility you've just done the audit, you need to make sure it says request corrective action up the top here, and simply hit execute. And what that does is change that finding from finding created to corrective action requested. So you can see here, that's the previous one, this one down here, corrective action requested. And so that's now with the operator facility, and when they send back that nonconformity corrective action response, you'll get an email letting you know you need to do some action to close it out. And that's how you complete the audit checklist using the AniMark Conformance System in the web version.